What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Eclectic Collector channel. So we're going to be talking about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while that now has an official English translation thanks to Darkhorse Comics. I'm kind of surprised this didn't get the omnibus, like hardcover treatment that it's given some other things like Berserk and Blade of the Immortal and like Helsing and whatnot. Though I'm not complaining because I'm just in general like happy to own this thing, and I almost picked it up in Spanish at one point in time because I just wanted to get my hands on it, and it's much further along in Spanish. It might even be complete in Spanish for, all that I know, because I'm not sure if it's up to Rouge or not in Spanish. And I know a lot of you watching this video have probably already read Innocent, probably read the whole thing already, scan sites or wherever, or maybe you read another language in which it is completed or whatever. But this for me is my first time ever reading Innocent, and I wanted to go into it as blind as possible, but sadly somebody in one of the comments for one of my videos where I mentioned Innocent took it upon themselves to tell me what it's about, which kind of sucked. I wanted to go in blind because I like to do these videos blind. I don't like to have other people's words or thoughts or opinions in my head. I wanted kind of experience the thing for myself, and for the most part, I was still able to, experience this thing, and I actually did some research into the history of, the French Revolution and, before that, before leading up to it. Not so much for, historical context, but more for context within the story and within the characters, because it does, even though it's like a historical sort of a fiction, it does have, callbacks to what actually happened, during the French Revolution and the time leading up to the French Revolution. And for the most part, this volume takes place before the French Revolution. And I'll be honest with you right up front, I loved this first volume. I cannot wait to get my hands on volume 2, because this thing has just been an absolute, I want to call it a joy, but it's also been like super dark and super like violent and just, yeah, really brutal at times. And I got a lot of words I want to say about it, so I hope you will join me on this journey to talk about one of the best things that I've read in 2023. This will probably be the last video of 2023, but yeah, please join me as we embark on the journey that is Innocent. Innocent by Shinichi Sakamoto has received the much anticipated English adaptation it definitely deserved, and I couldn't be any happier to finally sink my teeth into this first omnibus volume. This is not my first story by Sakamoto-sensei, as I have already read the first volume of his new series, DRCL, Midnight Children, which I also did a video on earlier this year. There is no denying Sakamoto-sensei's incredible style and direction with his storytelling. There is something irresistibly unique about the way he frames a story and the characters that exist within that world. There is such a refined and exquisite elegance to everything he crafts. I have yet to read The Climber, but look forward to it as I now own the first 2 volumes in Spanish. With all that I've said, let's delve into the story of Innocent, and hopefully I can do this without giving you the whole thing and completely spoiling all the events of Volume 1. Innocent tells a dramatized and oftentimes fantastical version of a real-life family of executioners, and this first volume seems to highlight one member in particular, Charles Henry Sanson, who was also a living, breathing person and the eldest son of Jean-Baptiste Sanson, the Monsieur of Paris. I won't spoil all of his life as an executioner. However, I will say, if some of his more notable executions make the pages of Innocent, we are in for some truly gruesome sights. The story itself is set around the time of the French Revolution in the late 1700s, though it takes place initially leading up to that huge event in history. We even see on the pages of Innocent the civil unrest amongst common folk as their taxes are raised to unreal, exorbitant amounts. Our focus with Innocent is set mostly on the inner struggles of Charles Henry as he is tortured literally and figuratively by his uncertain future. Charles Henry has visions of being consoled by a tutor he had who has since passed away. This hallucinatory encounter seems to give him the courage to press on with what he must do, carry forth the family lineage. He wanted to become a doctor, but being noticed by a fellow student as an executioner's son, Charles Henry is forced to leave the school, or else tarnish its spotless reputation. The thing is like, this dude's life could have been completely different. Like, he could have ended up actually becoming, like a doctor or something, because if I'm not mistaken, I think he was in school. The real life Charles Henry Sanson, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, was in school, and he was pulled out of school because I think one of his fellow classmates recognized him as being the son of the Monsieur, however you pronounce that, of France, like pretty much, or not France, of like Paris or something. I forgot what the actual title is, but yeah, pretty much one of his like classmates, I think, recognized him as being the son, of an executioner, and to preserve the school's illustrious sort of history and past or whatever, he ended up being withdrawn from the school, which I think was a medical school. I always, whenever I do these videos and whenever I say anything, like I always put like an article or something, that clarifies the thing and gives you the exact context. And I'll even put references. I really don't do this in any of my videos, but I should start doing it, and I'm going to start doing it, as of this video, I'm going to start putting references in the description of the video, just for anybody that wants to, do their own research or whatever. Don't take anything that I say as like being 100% true, because I could just be talking complete nonsense. But for the most part, yeah, I think that's what happened. And then just think about it. I thought about it as I was reading it, because for the most part, the events are real. They're like super high, they're like super stylized and whatnot, and made fantastical, almost like watching like a Tarantino movie, like watching Inglourious Bastards, or watching like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it's like all like made really fantastical or whatever. And that does happen in Innocent, but the events around, the characters, even though the characters are made, fantastical or whatever, the events around them for the most part did happen. And through doing my own sort of like, not like deep dive hardcore research, but just like, just kind of looking things up, looking up articles and whatnot to see, how much of it is real and whatnot, and learning more about the real life, Charles Henry Sanson, and knowing that he really wasn't a fan of the work he had to do, and knowing that he could have been a doctor or something, but instead, because of what happened, when he was in school, he ended up being thrust, into the family business against his will for the most part. And you got to think about that sort of thing. And it's something that does happen to people. It happens still now. You could go off to college to do whatever, and then you end up having to come home to take care of somebody in your family, or to do this or to do that, and it kind of throws any plans that you had out the window. Only in this scale, the plans that this dude had were much different, and where he ends up and the things he ends up becoming a part of are like, are pretty huge, and like a huge part of history. So yeah, that's definitely pretty wild. As I've said before, this story is a marvel to gaze upon. I want to say this is some of Shinichi Sakamoto's more brilliant artwork, but I would say so without ever having consumed much else other than DRCL, which is also a statement I've already made in this video. So instead, what I'll say is, of these two stories, Innocent is the all-around clear-cut winner. The juggling of moods is expertly done. Some hints of comedy are sprinkled in as well. This is not a completely miserable story, not yet, anyway, but it is a moody one. It is also pretty graphic in its details about the art of human decapitation and how casually the Sanson family speaks of it during dinner. Charles Henry's first execution is a rather personal one, a morbid jab at him for his inexperience and because he failed to carry out an act he was adamantly against, the killing of a lion which had done no harm to anyone. There are sudden flourishes of violence that are pretty extreme, including one that went so far to the point a tuft of hair and an ear fly into a crowd of onlookers. After all, we follow a troubled young man dealing with his own sexuality and the tasks he must perform to carry on the family business and uphold the reputation as professional executioners. There shouldn't be any personal feelings held prior to the kill. I'm not the biggest consumer of historical dramas, though I did love the show Vikings and watched most of it until around the death of a favorite character of mine. I felt like the show sort of died with him because what came next wasn't as interesting anymore. Innocent without Charles Henry Sanson would feel the same, I think. With the amount of tears he's shed and the boundless doubt that clouds his heart, he reminds me of Shinji Ikari from Neon Genesis Evangelion. All that's left is for the rest of the Sansons to gather in a circle and congratulate him at the end. I don't mean to make fun of the character or the story, because both are fleshed out in a slow, methodical way, revealing more of him as we go. He's being shaped against his will into a heartless killer when he is, in truth, a soft, remorseful, and gentle boy. That brings up the family Sanson and the matriarchal grandmother who is just all around a raging psychopath. I won't go too far into that, but the family dynamic is also really well done. Shinichi Sakamoto's incredible attention to detail is as amazing as ever. I can't imagine how many books he must have poured through, how much research he did to craft this mesmerizing historical drama. It even name drops William Harvey, an early 17th century physician who did extensive research into the complete circulatory system in the human body. I looked random names and events up to see if they were true or figments of the story to sell this world, but they are, for the most part, based on fact. I will include my sources below. So yeah, like I did, like some looking around just out of curiosity, and I don't know how much of this I want to say, for anybody that maybe hasn't read that far into the story, but I mean, for the most part, if you, know some French history, I know like the tiniest bit because of the stuff that I learned when I was in like grade school or whatever, but one thing that I like about the story is that like it kind of gives background and context to characters that will eventually be beheaded, and you meet them in the story as characters, and I thought that was kind of wild. And you meet Charles Henry's uncle, who between the two of them they did a drawing and quartering of a person who committed a crime against the crown. They tried to this one dude tried to kill the king at the time, Louis the 15th, if I'm not mistaken, tried to kill him, and they ended up drawing and quartering this dude, and it had been like the first one in 100 and something years, and Charles Henry, helps his uncle do this quartering in real life, and you actually see it, in the manga as well. It's a lot more like fantastical in the manga. In real life, I'm sure it was just like the most grisly, brutal thing out. Because that is extremely grisly and extremely brutal, dude. And Casanova, the real life Casanova, happened to be there. And that's something that I found and just like doing my own looking around and just kind of like trying to learn more about the period. That Casanova was, there and saw the thing and was like, this is disgusting. Like, what the hell? I don't know if that's exactly what he thought, but he did think like it was like super disgusting. And yeah, dude, that was the last one they did. I think that was the last one they ever did of the drawing and quartering, and for the most part, Charles Henry's uncle never did another execution. I think that was the last execution he ever did, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong on any of these things, please feel free to call me out and tell me the real history. I'm just going by things that like I kind of looked at. I didn't look at it like super duper in depth, but it just kind of like, just out of curiosity, just like kind of looked at the history of it. So if I'm saying anything that is incorrect, please feel free to just let me know in the comments. If you're like a history buff and you know the exact, reasons and the exact things that happened, please feel free to just like drop me in the comments like what the real history is, and I'll pin your comment or something. So let's get back into it. I got plenty more to say about Innocent. I've wanted to read Innocent ever since I saw the Archipel interview with Sakamoto-sensei, where he breaks down his daily routine. I'll share the video in the description for anyone who wants to see it. All I will say, to not spoil that either, is that it gives you a whole new level of respect for the man, and even heightens the experience while reading Innocent, knowing just how much work went into it. As much as they are a family of executioners, they are also skilled physicians, performing blood treatments to alleviate blood clots and other ailments. When you read this tale, if you haven't already, look into the eyes of the characters. They are so prominent, with literal pages of nothing but close-ups of eyes, the windows into a person's being. You become entranced in what you find there, staring back at you. The hard-set eyes of Jean-Baptiste, Charles Henry's father, or the sadistic eyes of his grandmother. The eyes in this story tell 1,000 words. In reading Innocent, I was curious about whether or not executioners had any lingering regrets, or if they ever reflected on the people they'd killed. And in looking up an answer, I found an article about prison guards getting PTSD from lethal injections they were a part of. How it works, at least in one prison I saw mentioned, is that 3 COs turn 3 separate keys, but only one of them actually activates the liquid that will kill the death row inmate. These guards are given no training to cope with taking a life, or are given therapy afterwards. One former CO claimed to see the faces or eyes of all the men he had put to death. They haunted him. I wondered if it was ever the same for Charles Henry. His executions were far more visceral and present, no turning keys. He was there, wielding the sword or bringing down the guillotine on the neck of the accused. He was even involved in a far more brutal act, the drawing and quartering of a man who attempted to commit regicide. He helped his uncle, Nicholas Charles Gabriel Sanson, carry this act out, which would be the uncle's last act as an executioner. While this is going on, there is a dance between Charles Henry and the man who is to be killed, Robert Francois Damiens, that takes place in Charles Henry's imagination. There is an incredible juxtaposition of brutality and beauty in Innocent that is blended well by the hand of a seasoned veteran. There are panels in this manga that could be paintings. They are exquisite enough to be portraits hung in a home. So I've been talking a lot about Charles Henry Sanson. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, but I've been talking a lot about him in these breaks between my long script, and I had to break it up because it was just way too much text to just have going nonstop. And I hope that these breaks are working. I hope it's a good way to kind of break up the video. If not, then maybe I won't do them next time around. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Shinichi Sakamoto himself, and I've got the first volume of The Breaker right here. I've got the first 2 volumes of this series, and I kind of skimmed this, and I'll show you some panels on this side of the screen from this manga. And as I was skimming the Climber, this is in Spanish, and this is by Milky Way Ediciones, which is I think they're based out of I think one of them is based out of Spain, and then I know they're based out of 2 different countries, if I'm not mistaken. Milky Way Ediciones, I think they're based out of 2 different countries. But I got this volume of it right here, which I think might be the Castellan version of it. And I kind of skimmed it a little bit, and the artwork is definitely on a different level, than the artwork from Innocent. Because Innocent has some gorgeous artwork, so highly stylized and detailed. And the Archipel interview that I watched, you see Sakamoto-san detail, how he went from drawing, for Innocent to how he now draws. How he went from drawing for The Climber to how he now draws for Innocent and DRCL. Though he doesn't mention DRCL because I don't think DRCL even existed yet at the time when he did the interview. But pretty much the way he drew in Innocent is the way he would eventually draw in DRCL. And I'm reading DRCL, and I talked about DRCL in a separate video. So this is the second video I do about Shinichi Sakamoto on the channel. And I'm going to read The Climber. And once I read The Climber, I want to do a video about it. I kind of just want to do a video about Shinichi Sakamoto in general, because this is a dude that I highly respect. And yeah, I just wanted to make a big video about him to kind of highlight his work. And, it's just been an absolutely wild ride to be able to, get to spend time with this creator's work. Because I feel like the more time you spend reading a creator, the more you start to see a part of them in their creations. And I feel like between the Climber, DRCL, and Innocent, now that I've been fortunate enough to kind of look through all three of these series, I feel like I've gotten to look into this creative genius's sort of world, though I don't think I could ever, fully experience it. I don't think anybody could ever fully experience it, because he is his own, person. He is his own entity, and every person is their own, sort of universe and whatnot. I'm just glad that I was able to be a part of this, and yeah, I feel really lucky that I got to experience this. So let's finish out this massive review of Innocent. I hope that you are still watching. If you are, give me a big old thumbs up in the comments. I appreciate the hell out of you for sticking around and watching these videos with me. It means the world. This is the last video of the year, so I wanted to make it a nice chunky one to, go out with a big old bang. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy the rest of this video. Shinichi Sakamoto says himself in the Archipel interview that he wanted to change his style, adopt a new way of doing things, and as a result, he transitioned from pen and paper to digital. Though from his Instagram posts and from the same interview, it looks like he still hand draws. No matter the medium this brilliant mangaka uses, his skill and unwavering devotion to his art shine through splendidly. I've mentioned the grandmother sent son before, but she is pretty well done. She's as sadistic as she is manipulative, holding Jean-Baptiste in a sort of spiderweb that we see a terrifying visual representation of. She attempts to do the same with Charles Henry throughout the volume, break him down and make him dependent upon her. It failed with her other son, Nicholas, which led to her favoring Jean-Baptiste instead. How much of it is real or fiction, I don't know or claim to. The family conflict amidst the growing tensions in the country is well played. This could be a drama on TV, and I would 100% sit and watch each and every new episode. It is absolutely engaging. There is a line that resonated with me as the metaphoric embodiment of Charles Henry's predicament. It is so twisted that I harbor the desire to protect someone, despite being equipped only with talons that are made to rend human flesh. This sweet boy who wanted to go to medical school is made into a cold-blooded executioner. Despite its mammoth size, once you begin Innocent, it's difficult to put down. This is one tale that doesn't ever cease to amaze, moving from one act to another, telling the sprawling narrative. I hope you will appreciate the gymnastics I had to go through to avoid heavy spoilers while writing this review. This is a huge first omnibus with tons of content, and my desire to write about all of it is burdensome. However, I do want to keep it relatively open to anyone who hasn't read the series yet. Innocent is a bombastic, gorgeously detailed, oftentimes gruesome, queer story. Despite rewriting history at its whim, it is based on true events with characters who were once real people, and it might just be my favorite release of 2023.
Yo, it's himself, the Shadowrunners clique, aka Sleep Allah. Take you on a mental and live for one day, y'all. Sheets, yo, guns, yo. Yo, who got the guns, who got the coke? Hustling them through like big punch cholesterol before he croak. Rest in peace, but I bless in peace and live to one day lean shoots. Rap over beats and tell wild stories, the mythology mystery. Choke on your own misery, fuck them, we're the wild bunch. Yo, I asked him if this bike could punch. This shit made me lose my lunch. Bro grabbed the rocket, I said chill before he cocked it.